Hey everyone, I'm Army Gaming. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to Monster Analysis. Up for analysis today is Crissandre. Crissandre was a slave until one day her fairy grew so strong that it gave her the magical power to break free of her chains, defeat her master, and liberate all the other slaves under his oppression. She then summoned Ymur, a legendary sword that has stayed in her service ever since. And so here we have the latest and newest magic monster, and let me just tell you before I begin, this is by far one of the most amazing magic monsters ever to be released. She is without a doubt a contender for the top tier magic monster, and we'll definitely get into why that is in a little bit. Before continuing, just so everyone knows when I'm making this video, there are currently 35 magic legendary monsters, and so I'm going to be comparing this monster's stats with the remaining 34 magic monsters, and I'm also going to try to incorporate how good this monster is compared to every single monster in general. And so this monster boasts a pretty amazing power of 3,432. This actually puts her in 8th place when comparing her to other magic monsters, and considering there's a total of 35 magic monsters, this is a really good power to have. Especially when you look at her life of 31,366, which puts her in 6th place along with Scar the Outcast, the VIP monster. So not only does she have a pretty good power, she has a pretty good life. And that is furthermore impressive when you look at her speed, 3,498. That is an amazing speed. In terms of magic monsters, this puts her in 4th place. But the speed stat itself, this is the 3rd highest. It just so happens that Pandacloss and Cupid, they have a speed of 3,542, so both of those monsters are faster than her, and then there's Gretchen with a speed of 3,575, which is the fastest magic monster. But however, when you compare this monster to those monsters, they're not really good at denying. Cupid doesn't have an AoE deny skill, Pandacloss doesn't have an AoE deny skill, they're not really top tier monsters, they're not even that good arguably. And as for Gretchen, although she may be incredibly fast, the best she can do is give your team Mirror, and when you have Mirror you still take damage, so she's not the best monster at protecting your team. This monster on the other hand, as you're going to see when I talk about her skills, she has a deny skill, so you can arguably classify this monster as the top tier magic monster in terms of denial. And so seriously, all of her stats are way above average. Oh, and by the way, when we compare the speed to every single legendary monster currently released, all 239 legendary monsters, this puts her in 14th place along with Baba Yaga and Zyla the Faithful, another VIP monster. Isn't it crazy that she's that fast? Now the speed stat itself, 3498, this is actually the 8th highest. There's just a lot of monsters that are tied for a certain place, but seriously, she is so darn fast. And to make things even better, her trait is hardened. All status effects have a 20% less accuracy against it. And this actually makes her the 5th magic monster to have hardened. The 4 other monsters that have hardened are Lernian, Monster Clutch, Sun Cookie, and Pinking Flash. And so once again, considering there's 35 magic legendary monsters, she's pretty unique in that she has hardened. And as far as whether this trait is good or not so good, in the past I would have said it would be better if this monster was immune to possession, because the main form of denial for magic monsters is with possession. However, I think moving forward in the game, having hardened and having those traits like Tough and Bulwark, the VIP and the generals have, I think that's a better trait to have moving forward, specifically because even if this monster was immune to possession, the enemy could just attack you with Uru. Uru has an AoE stun, so your immunity to possession would be rather useless, because you would still get immobilized. And considering that we now have team wars involving all sorts of different elements, now that we have the library, now that we have the book wars, it's very possible that this monster can go up against water monsters, fire monsters, metal monsters, all sorts of monsters, meaning you never know if you need protection to freeze, if you need protection to stun, or if you need protection to possession. And not to mention that having a trait like Harden, this also protects you against those unique immobilizing skills, like Mega Stun, like Hacked, like Glitched, like Stop Time. So definitely moving forward in the game, having Hardened is one of the best traits you can have. I just gotta say, it's unreal how great this monster is. Design is amazing, stats are amazing, and the trait is amazing. And now let's move on to her incredible skills. First of all, her ultimate attack, over 1,100 knights, heals by 100%, possesses all enemies. So it says it only attacks a single enemy, but the description itself says it's an AoE, and it's an AoE possession, and she heals herself by 100%. So not only is this move already good because it's an AoE possession, she also recovers any damage she may have taken. Sure, this skill deals no damage, but that doesn't really matter too much because if you give this monster 3 speed runes and use it as a deny monster, the damage output wouldn't even be that great. And so this skill is pretty darn good. She heals all the way back to her 31k life and she possesses the enemy monsters. What more can you want? Moving on to skills group 1, the only skill I briefly want to talk about, even though you don't want to run it, I just want to mention the practicality of this skill. Family Protector removes all negative status effects. This skill targets all of your allies, it costs 26 stamina and has no cooldown. And the reason I like this skill is because it has no cooldown and it removes all of your debuffs. So if you're ever in a situation where all of your monsters have some sort of debuff, whether they're mobilized, whether they have a DOT like Burning, Bleeder, Nightmares, or anything of the sort, you would be able to use this skill to get rid of all those debuffs because it has no cooldown, so cooldowns activated wouldn't affect you. And not to mention that the stamina cost is also really low on this skill. And keep in mind that you also have the trait Hardened. So let's say the enemy does an AoE freeze and your other 2 monsters get frozen, but you don't get frozen. You can use this skill to get rid of the frozen, and that way your monsters will be able to attack. That being said, however, I just wanted to mention the practicality of the skill. Overall though, I am not going to be recommending this skill. And so anyways, moving on over to skills group 2, we have Ymur's Spirit. Deals heavy special damage, may make target bleed, requires cooldown. This skill targets a single enemy, it deals 55 special base damage, it costs 28 stamina, it has a 1-turn cooldown, and it applies bleeding. Bleeding reduces the enemy's health by 10% for the next 3 turns, and it also reduces their damage output by 20% for the next 3 turns. And this skill is actually your only special base skill, not counting the one from skills group 1, which is basically a weaker version. That's a 50% chance to bleed, and the damage output is like 30 or 35. And overall, I really can't recommend this build unless you're going for an offensive build. If you're going for an offensive build where you're going to give this monster 2 strength runes and a speed rune, in that case you probably would want a special base skill just to tag the enemy magic monster, but other than that I really don't see this skill being used. Especially because even though you can use this monster offensively, I think it would be a waste. This monster should definitely be used as a deny monster. And next up is Gnaw Advantage. Deals moderate magic damage, removes all positive status effects from target. This skill is a magic based skill that targets a single enemy, it deals 45 damage, costs 28 stamina, and it has no cooldown. And whatever positive buff the enemy monster may have, it is completely gone. Whether it's life regeneration, stamina regeneration, a 50% buff, double damage, triple damage, doesn't matter, it's gone. It's definitely a great skill to have, especially when you go up against light monsters, earth monsters, especially with all of their shields, they can become really tanky. But in this case, you don't need the skill because there's actually a better version in skills group 3. And as you can see, I already haven't recommended the previous 2 skills, thus the skills you're going to want to run on this monster are the next 4 skills. So we're going to start things off with Curse Cleanser. Deals heavy magic damage, removes negative status effects from all allies, requires cooldown. This skill deals a whopping 60 damage, it's magic based, it costs 28 stamina, and it has a 1-turn cooldown. The 60 damage output for the 1-turn cooldown is amazing. Like I said, if you want to run this monster offensively, you can. She has the great power and she certainly has the damage output in the skills. And not only that, this skill also removes any debuffs you may have. So let's say you happen to be dazed or blind, let's say the enemy monster was able to apply burning, bleeding, nightmares, any sort of negative effect, it's completely gone, and you also deal a nice amount of damage to the enemy monster. Now obviously if you give all speedruns on this monster, this skill won't be that strong, but at the end of the day it's still 60 damage, it's still going to deal quite a nice chunk of life out of the enemy monster, and that damage emitted from this skill could be all you need to take out an enemy monster. Oh, and actually let me add to this, I just reread this, it actually removes negative status effects from all of your allies, so that is even more spectacular, because if your allies happen to be immobilized, if they're on the verge of dying, let's say they only have 10% of their health remaining and they have burning, it doesn't matter, you're going to remove that negative debuff, and so your monsters are going to be able to stay alive, you're going to be able to get a turn in, and you're going to have a better chance of securing 3 coins if it's a team war. This is truly an amazing skill. And so moving on to skills group 3, we have Ymur's Curse. Deals moderate magic damage to all enemies, may make all targets bleed, removes positive status effects from all enemies, requires cooldown. Wow. Here we have a magic based AoE that deals 45 damage to all of the enemy monsters, it costs 41 stamina, which is pretty high, and it has a 2-turn cooldown, which is surprising for a skill of this magnitude. However, it doesn't really matter that the cooldown is that low, because you're pretty much only going to be using this skill once. This skill is an AoE bleeding, which is essentially the same as an AoE poison, except no monster is immune to bleeding. This is one of the best negative effects you can apply on the enemy monster, and to make things even better, it removes all positive good effects on the enemy monsters. On all of them, it's an AoE. And I seriously love what the skill does. Let's say you were going up against an earth monster or a nature monster and they had life regeneration, the nature monster specifically. Or let's say the earth monster had a shield on. Not only are you getting rid of that shield, are you getting rid of that life regeneration, you're replacing that with bleeding. So now they're going to lose health. And their damage output is reduced. It's incredible, and it's 45 magic based damage. This monster can seriously be a metal killer. Even if you give her like all speedruns, I'm pretty sure the damage output she's going to be emitting to metal monsters is going to be great. And so once again, if you want to run this monster offensively, if you want to give her some strength tunes, you can totally do that because she's going to be great no matter what. And the next skill we have is Time Breaker. Deals very heavy magic damage, activates all cooldowns on enemy skills, requires cooldown. This skill targets a single enemy, it costs 65 damage, it costs 28 stamina, it has a 3-turn cooldown, that is pretty high, but this skill is basically cooldowns activated on a single monster. And so this is yet another amazing skill. Cooldowns activated is one of the best ways to immobilize a monster. Even if the enemy monster has a 0 cooldown skill, most of the time 0 cooldown skills aren't that great. Most of the time the skills you gotta worry about are the ones with a 3 or a 4-turn cooldown or a 2-turn cooldown even. You know, typically AoE deny skills, they tend to have a cooldown, so being able to use cooldowns activated against an enemy monster, that's gonna forbid them from doing their AoE deny skill. And you could also potentially use this skill against the enemy attacker, because typically the enemy attacker's skills that are really powerful, they also tend to have a cooldown, at the very least a 1-turn cooldown. There's obviously various exceptions that have a strong 0 cooldown skill, but for the most part the really powerful strong skills are the ones with a cooldown, so this can be a really good way to stop the enemy from destroying your monsters. It goes without saying that this is another amazing skill, and look at the damage output, 65. Once again, I know I'm repeating myself, but this monster can be an attacker or a deny monster. Regardless of how you build her, she's going to be great. And the final skill we have is Lovely Touch. Deals moderate magic damage to all enemies, may stun all enemies, requires cooldown. Here we have it, the amazing skill that makes this monster an incredible deny monster, especially coupled with her amazing speed. This skill is a magic based skill that targets all of the enemy monsters. It deals 40 damage, that's already super strong. There's no reason this skill needed to be that strong. It has a 37 stamina cost, a 3 regen cooldown, and it stuns all of the enemy monsters. Currently in the magic category, not that many monsters are immune to stun. There's only 2 monsters immune to stun, Pixeline and Goldfield, both of which you would probably never ever see on defense. If they are on defense, it doesn't matter. All you need to do is bring one of your many magic monsters that has a possession skill. Most of the time, the number 1 monster you'll see on defense is probably an Egg Eater, because he can burn or blind you, or he can possession you. And most likely moving forward, you can imagine that this monster is going to be a common defense monster once people start to rank her up and level her up past level 100. Anyways, going back to the fact that only 2 magic monsters are immune to stun, currently the only other monster that had an AoE stun skill was Uru. Now Uru is definitely a good magic monster too. His speed is 3465, which makes him really fast, on par with other top tier deny monsters. However, his trait was immune to daze, which isn't necessarily the best. Hardened is significantly a better trait to have. And after this monster did his AoE stun skill, the best he can do is an AoE daze skill, which is really good because the enemy's accuracy is reduced by 25% and the damage output is reduced by 25%. But with Crissandre, after you do your AoE stun skill, you have various different options. You can activate cooldown on one enemy monster, the one you probably perceive as the biggest threat. You can do an AoE bleeding to reduce the enemy's damage output and to reduce their health for 3 turns to come. And at the same time, you're also removing any positive buff they may have. Or if needed to, you can also remove any negative debuffs from all of your allies. So this monster is way better. She plays the supportive role so well, and at the same time she can take away quite a bit of damage from the enemy monster she attacks. And so if you're going for deny build, if you plan to put 3 speed runes on this monster, which realistically I think most people should, you want to run these 4 skills: Curse Cleaner, Ymir Curse, Time Breaker, and Lovely Touch. And I should also mention that this skill set would also work perfectly well on an offensive build, because even with an offensive build, you can start the game off with Lovely Touch and immobilize all of the enemy monsters. And then on the following turn, you already dealt a 40 magic based AoE, you can use your Curse skill, which is a 45 magic based AoE. So although this might not be that effective against the enemy magic monster, against the other 2 monsters, you're most likely going to kill them. And even if they do happen to survive, keep in mind that you're going to apply bleeding, so that's 10% of their life. So all you need to do is take away 90% of their life using Lovely Touch and Curse. If you can manage to take away 90% of their life, the bleeding will do the rest. And then if you're using an offensive rune set, you have a 65 magic based attack as well as a 60 damage based attack. The 60 damage based attack only has a 1 turn cooldown, and the 65 has a 3 turn cooldown, so it's really easy to cycle if you start off with Curse Cleaner and you follow it up with Time Breaker. But again, you have an AoE stun to use, you have a strong 45 damage AoE that applies bleeding, so you honestly really can't go wrong with this skill set, because if you ever wanted to make her an attacker, you can just change the runes. If you ever want to make her a deny monster, you can just change the runes. But going back to what I said earlier about Spirit, if you want to use this skill on an offensive build set, you can totally do that. It's specifically going to be to take out the enemy magic monster. So it's going to be up to you. You can either get rid of Curse Cleaner or Time Breaker. As for the 2 AoEs, I think they are definitely needed. And as far as using this monster on defense for Team Wars, I think it can definitely be a good idea. Without a doubt, the best skill the AI could use would be Lovely Touch. If that could immobilize the enemy monsters, you're in a really good position. The next best skill would probably be the AoE Bleeding, because that would reduce the enemy's damage output and it would start cutting away their life. Time Breaker could potentially be another good skill to use, otherwise it really won't be doing too much. If on defense the AI can do this against the enemy deny monster, say the enemy has an Egg Eater, that's going to prevent Egg Eater from doing his AoE possession skill and his AoE burn and blind skill. And as for Curse Cleaner, this would probably be the least useful skill for the AI to use, but overall you have a 75% chance, I guess more like a 50% chance of doing a really good skill if this monster was on defense. So in my opinion, she can definitely be a good monster. Now that's not to say it can't backfire, because if you put this monster on defense, and if the enemy happens to be faster than you, they could always possess you. 80% of the time it will work, and after they possess you, if the AI does AoE stun against your team, then you'd seriously be in trouble. At the same time, however, if your monsters were to be possessed, and you happen to stun yourself, that's also kind of a good thing, because now instead of your monsters attacking themselves and wasting stamina, now they're immobilized due to stun. If you're possessed, however, and the AI was to do AoE bleeding against your own team, then that would seriously suck. Because not only are you possessed, not only are you going to waste your own stamina attacking yourself, the bleeding is also going to take away life from your own team. So there's obviously ups and downs to using this monster on defense, but I still definitely think she can be a really good defensive monster, especially moving forward because of the library, because of all the different book wars. And so I'm really curious to know where they're going to place this monster in future books, because depending on what book they actually place her, she can be an even more significant monster. But just in terms of the magic monsters, she can definitely be classified as an elite monster, in a class of her own even. She is truly one of the most amazing monsters we've ever seen for some time now. And with that being said, that is going to conclude my analysis. Please let me know what you guys thought about the video, and please let me know what you guys think about this monster. Do you agree with me? Do you think she's amazing? Do you think she's phenomenal? Or do you think I'm giving her too much credit? Whatever thoughts you may be having, please let me know in the comments below. With that being said, I'm Armor Gaming. Good luck to everyone on your Monster Legends adventure. Like always, remember to dream big and pursue your passions.